If you're vaccinated, you're not going to be hospitalized, you're not going to be in an ICU unit, and you're not going to die. And you're not going to die. And you're not going to die.
73 million Americans. That's how many people say they personally know someone whose death they think may have been caused by the side effects of the COVID-19 vaccine. Here's the question. 28% of American adults, which extrapolates to about 73 million people, say they know someone who they think died from the vaccine. That's absolutely astonishing. The corporate media or big pharma might want you thinking that vaccine deaths are in the realm of maybe a few thousand crackpots on a Telegram channel, but the reality is it's a massive and widespread concern for 3 in 10 Americans. Now, we can't directly infer how many people died from the vaccine, but clearly the underlying number is large enough so that well over a quarter of Americans think the vaccine is a killer. So let me show you some of the internal data that further supports the horrors of this poll. Let's look at party. Obviously, it's just tinfoil hat Republicans that think they know someone who died from the vaccine, right? Absolutely false. It's actually more Democrats than Republicans, 33% to 26%. Now, this is likely due to the fact that Democrats probably know more vaccinated individuals, or that Democrats tend younger, and younger people are more socially engaged. But clearly, there isn't much in the way of party dogmas at play. In fact, a pretty good chunk of Republicans, 63%, got vaccinated, and a pretty good chunk of Democrats, 14%, didn't. So the parties are more or less in the same boat here. There wasn't much of a difference between gender, race, marital status, income, or any other demographic, which is exactly as you would expect if this was a real signal. But here's age, and again, the results are very troubling. Younger adults are way more likely than older adults to attribute the death of someone they know to the side effects of the vaccine. I can't and won't tell you why that number is higher, but here are some possible explanations. Young people die less, so potentially vaccine deaths are more salient. Younger people are potentially more sensitive to the side effects, especially since the coverage of some of the side effects, like myocarditis, by people like Joe Rogan. And possibly it's because young people are, like I said before, more socially engaged. Think college campuses, maybe they have kids in school. Finally, it could be a propensity for alternative sources of news media. Now, clearly, there are some people that answered this in the affirmative because they have a vaccine axe to grind. That's the problem with public opinion polling. It picks up people's biases. But let's examine something that should give us a feeling of how much bias there is. This is whether people know someone who died, crossed against whether the respondents said they were vaccinated. 22% of vaccinated adults say they know someone they think died from the vaccine, and 45% of unvaccinated adults agreed. Now, there are so many variables that could impact these numbers that I won't get into all of them. Post in the comments if you have your own theories. But here is the important takeaway. The numbers for vaccinated individuals is not 0%. And the number for unvaccinated individuals is not 100%. In fact, the numbers are pretty close. And there are very viable explanations, like potentially a person deciding not to get the vaccine after an acquaintance died from it. Here's another question we asked. How likely is it that the side effects of the COVID-19 vaccines have caused a significant number of unexplained deaths? 49% of American adults say likely, and 28% say very likely. Only 17% say not at all likely. This question may seem similar to the previous one, but it's in fact picking up a very different signal, one that asks them to draw conclusions about how widespread the issue of vaccine deaths is. I don't think I need to tell you that half of Americans saying that it's at least somewhat likely that vaccines are causing a significant number of unexplained deaths is a very scary thing. I really don't know how the pharmaceutical government complex is going to put this cat back in the bag. But here's party. Again, it isn't party dogmas at play. 56% of Republicans say it's at least somewhat likely, as do 51% of Democrats, and pretty much 1/3 of each say it's very likely. Only 23% of Democrats say it's not at all likely. It's actually independents who say it's least likely, but they tend to be more disconnected from the news. 38% of vaccinated individuals say it's at least somewhat likely, and only 23% of them say not at all likely, while 77% of the unvaccinated say it's at least somewhat likely.